Our Across the Aisle segment tonight, Democrats are calling for the resignation of Attorney General Jeff Sessions over revelations that he met with the Russian ambassador during the 2016 presidential campaign. Sessions announced that he would recuse himself from any investigation into Trump's 2016 presidential campaign. But according to sources, this decision angered President Trump, who felt that it was hasty and overkill, considering that Sessions did nothing wrong. Take a look.
But when you spoke with the Russian ambassador, who was with you during that time?
Well, there were several other ambassadors around me when I talked to him the first time after my remarks, and then I talked to him at an evening reception later in the day, and Carter Page was standing next to me when I talked to the ambassador that time. This Global Partners in Diplomacy had a week with the Republicans in Cleveland. Then the same group of ambassadors went to Philadelphia to go to their convention, to the Democrat National Convention, to meet Hillary's campaign, to meet DNC staff. So a group of ambassadors, dozens, 50-some, spent time with us, but then they spent time with the Democrats.
And that was J.D. Gordon, former national security advisor to the Trump campaign. He's also embroiled in the accusations that he colluded in some way with the Russians. With me now to break all of this down, Democratic media strategist Franco Ripple. Franco, hi, how you doing?
I don't know how to say good evening in Russian, but if I did, I would say so. Good evening, Liz.
Franco, I was going to say, this is your favorite topic. We finally get to talk about Russia and all these Russian allegations. And I want to start out with this. It's not even a question. It's more of an acknowledgement. Franco, meeting with a legitimate ambassador from Russia versus conspiring or colluding secretly with an operative of the Russian government to hack Hillary's emails. You recognize that those are two very different things, right?
Of course, and lots of people have met with the Russian ambassador. That's his job, and that's their job, whether they're U.S. senators or other heads of state or other parts of the government. But the difference is that at no point, this is a distraction, at no point during the campaign did the Democratic candidate say glowing, glorious things about the president of Russia, to whom now unanimously 17 intelligence agencies have said that government was trying to throw the election to the Republican candidate.
The problem here, and I just want to make sure I understand this, the problem here, or the problem that you have here, is that Trump likes Putin in some respects?
No, it's not. No, this is it is a threat to the democracy. That is what the problem is.
That's what I'm asking. Like, I'm trying to identify the bottom of this. What is the threat to the democracy? I mean, you and I both agree. Jeff Sessions met with the Russian ambassador. People on the Trump campaign met with the Russian ambassador. There's nothing wrong with that in and of itself. Last week there was some scandal because Jeff Sessions didn't articulate clearly or wasn't fully forthcoming in his Senate hearing about meeting with the Russian ambassador. I understand the concern about that, but it's not. If it's not the meetings, what is the concern here?
The problem is not in and of itself the meetings. The meetings are a symptom of the disease. And the disease is the fact that, again, unanimously, 17 American intelligence agencies that President Donald Trump disparaged repeatedly throughout the campaign and following the campaign, those agencies unanimously, which does not come lightly, have said that it is clear that the Russian government and President Putin specifically ordered Kremlin intelligence to throw the American election.
It's an influence campaign. I don't disagree with you, Franco. I don't think that there's anyone arguing that the Russians didn't try to influence our election. There is a distinct difference, I think, between hacking voting machines or voter registrations and waging an influence campaign. No one's arguing that. What I'm saying is, why would you assume? What evidence is there to say that Donald Trump himself had anything to do with that?
We don't know. That's the problem, Liz. That is the problem with all of this, is that the American people are being denied information that they are due from their government. So we have for example, we have a tragedy in Benghazi. We have had other tragedies such as 9/11. In both of those cases, there were independent commissions, independent congressional committees, bipartisan, bicameral committees that were put together to investigate those situations. Here, you have leading Republicans, both Republican intelligence chairmen, as well as other Republican leaders saying, we don't need all that. This ain't a big deal. There's nothing to see here.
Okay, I have two questions. First of all, I think if I'm not mistaken here, there was an FBI investigation back around the time that the election occurred that looked into these allegations that the Trump campaign was colluding with Russia or had too close of ties to Russia. And like I said, correct me if I'm wrong, but I guess my second question is, if what you're desiring out of this is to have an independent investigation, why is the target on Jeff Sessions' back? I mean, he did the right thing. He recused himself. himself because he was part of the Trump campaign. I don't understand the problem.
Listen, the target is not on Jeff Sessions.
It was last week. There are Democratic lawmakers that are calling for his resignation. They're acting like he did something inappropriate, and I don't see that he did, and I don't think you do either.
I do, in fact, because he did not disclose. This is not a casual thing. When you have high-level meetings with the Russian ambassador at the time in which you are a senior advisor to a presidential campaign that has been embroiled in pro-Kremlin conspiracies throughout the entire election, it's weird that you would conveniently forget not to mention that.
Right, and like I said, I understand that concern, but you stated earlier that it wasn't the fact that he met with the Russian ambassador. I mean, we know Democrats did the same thing. We know Senator McCaskill did the same thing. We know that Senator Manchin said, "Oh, I've met with the Russian ambassador. We meet with all the ambassadors." I mean, we can show a picture on the screen right now of Nancy Pelosi meeting with the Russian ambassador. The problem, I mean, this wasn't exclusive to the Republicans. This is part of their job as senators to meet with ambassadors from all over the world. There was an actual State Department-sponsored program. This is under the Obama administration that had more than 80 ambassadors from different nations, including the Russian ambassador, go to the Republican National Convention and then go to the Democratic National Convention and meet with policy experts that were representing these campaigns. I mean, the problem is not that they met with them. It happened on both sides of the aisle.
You're right. Again, like I've said, the problem is not that they met. The problem is what was said, and we don't know. That is why we need an independent commission, an independent investigation, which, by the way, a majority of Americans support. We need an independent look into what was said, not only by Carter Page or by Jeff Sessions or by Jared Kushner or by Michael Flynn or by any of these other people. We need an investigation into why is this president so alarmingly, curiously close to Putin and the Kremlin. We don't know. We don't know because he won't release. No, Liz,
Right.
This is important. He will not release his taxes. So we don't know what I'm serious. We don't know what financial entanglements he may have with the Russian Federation. We don't know. Is that why he's being so friendly? We don't know. But the American people deserve to know because democracy is at stake.
Franco, you lost me on the taxes thing. I mean, I understand what you're saying. I think there's a lot of shady behavior going on in Washington, D.C. You know, I've said before on this show, you know, I'm sure I'm going to say it more as the week goes on here. We don't know the answers to these questions, and we can't form a conclusion when we don't know the answers. I think you're coming at it from the same perspective. That's why you want an independent investigation to find out the answers so that we know. But there are a lot of people on both sides of the aisle who are throwing out conclusions when nobody has the information necessary to actually draw these conclusions. And my final question to you, because we are almost out of time, was if these financial ties that you call them between Trump or Trump campaign officials or Trump administration officials and officials in the Russian government, if that is such a threat to our democracy, where were the calls for an investigation into Hillary and Bill Clinton and their over $100 million ties to Moscow?
I had a feeling that you were going to try to bring up unrelated things. Listen.
No, it's not unrelated. It's a double standard if you don't. And I'm not saying I disagree with the investigation, but why is it not a concern then if she was to be in the position, if you believed her to be worthy of the position Trump is in now?
Because no one's asking for the Trump Foundation, which has been found to be, engaged in all kinds of illicit activities. No one is asking for that foundation to be looked at the way no one's asking for the Clinton Foundation to be looked at. We're trying to look at this president's personal income and whether or not there are entanglements with Russian business, Russian government. We don't know. The point remains this. These are dark days for the American democracy, and I implore you and I implore your viewers to take this seriously, because if we don't get this right, if we don't figure out if Russia has the capability to undermine American elections, this is the collapse of the Roman Empire with Wi-Fi.
Franco, and I mean, I'm taking it very seriously. I mean, you can hear it in this discussion. I'm sure you can see it in the way that we've been conducting the discussions about it on this show. But I need evidence. When you're building a case, you have to have facts to build a case. We don't have the facts. So to draw a conclusion like that, this is a threat to our democracy without the facts to bring it up, it does, in some sense to me, water down that argument. It makes it seem like Democrats are crying wolf because we just don't know. And Franco, I know we're going to continue this discussion. I know we're going to continue this next week because this story is not even close to its completion, but we are out of time for today. Thanks for being here. All right, guys, our final tipping point of the night. 5 questions we need answered about President Trump's wiretap allegations. We'll be right back.